everyone. This is Corine La Font, your favorite radio host, your only radio host, and favorite girl, of course, broadcasting to you from the lovely island of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean on Between the Lines. And you'll see next to me a handsome man. I'm going to try to pronounce his name. It will not sound as good as when he says it, but I will try. Wes Al Dhaher. Did I do well?
You did beautifully, Corine.
Thank
Very beautiful.
you.
Good job.
You. And today we're talking about from Silicon Valley to storytelling. That's an interesting topic. We're going to see where it takes us today, from Silicon Valley to storytelling. And let me tell you a bit about Wes. So Wes is a Muslim American tech entrepreneur turned publisher. Let me say that again. A Muslim American tech entrepreneur turned publisher, creating authentic Islamic representation in comics. After a decade in tech, he founded, let me not say that. I am going to say what I see on the screen. Creator of the Brotherhood of the Wolf series. Say the other one I cannot say right now, Wes. What is the other one?
The other one is the publishing house, Tales of Khayr, which Khayr means goodness. So Tales of Goodness is what it means.
No, you see, I don't have that throat thing that Wes had.
Yeah. You know, some people have to get surgery to get that throat thing. It's okay. No problem.
We're not going there today, Wes. We're not going there today. So let me continue the bio. So he founded what he just said to pioneer character-driven dark fantasy that challenges stereotypes. His debut series, Brotherhood of the Wolf, I could say that, reimagines Ottoman history through a supernatural lens while staying true to Islamic values. Welcome, Wes, to Between the Lines.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's good. No, I can't recall in my years of doing this podcast ever having, unless I wasn't aware, a Muslim person and somebody who was in Silicon Valley that turned publisher. Explain that to me. How did that transition happen? And are you crazy? Everybody's trying to get into Silicon Valley, and you are telling me you're a tech, living in Silicon Valley, working in Silicon Valley, and decide to create comics. Explain it, Wes.
Yeah, no, it is crazy, but I think well, I mean, it's here's something that'll blow your mind. You might remember, Dracula.
Of course, I know Dracula, the blood-sucking vampire.
Yeah, exactly. So the real story isn't what you expect. The actual historical Dracula was a bad guy. He was a villain, and he had a younger brother called Radu, Radu the Handsome, they called him. And Radu, he was actually a Muslim hero who helped conquer Constantinople. But Hollywood literally flipped the script. So oftentimes they turn the villain, in this case Dracula, into a hero or a misunderstood type tragic figure, and erasing the identity of his younger brother Radu entirely. And you'll notice, and one thing that I notice is that's not an isolated incident, it's a pattern. And so if you think about every Muslim character you've seen in mainstream entertainment, whether it's film or TV shows or anything like that, you'll find kind of three tired tropes, three archetypes. The evil terrorist,
I know that one. I know that one.
Yeah, he just wants to blow everything up, right?
Of course, that's what Muslims do. That is the narrative that they put out there.
Exactly. And then the second trope is the token sidekick who just says inshallah a few times, right? He's kind of brown. Yeah, he's kind of brown, and he just sees us there, and he says inshallah, and it's like, yeah.
He sounds nice. He sounds nice when he says that.
Yeah, exactly. And then the third one is the so-called liberated Muslim fighting against their repressive faith. Usually it's a girl, and she wants to marry, she wants to be with the hero, and
I've heard of her. I've seen her.
Yeah. Or so like usually people who try to they're quote unquote repressed, and they want to explore alternative sexualities, and the whole thing is about that. So those are like the three main tropes that I've seen, and I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of this. Somebody needs to do something. And then year after year after year after year, nobody does anything because Muslims, they like to be comfortable in America and do the safe thing generally in tech or engineering or if you go to the Midwest, if you go to the American Midwest, everybody, almost all the doctors in the American Midwest are either Syrian or Pakistani. but you have, but you don't really have anybody who's going into the arts, right? And for me, it's just like, well, you can't complain about what's in the arts if you don't contribute to the arts. You can't
Yeah.
just. So I
Yeah.
decided, let me throw my hat in the ring. And despite, you know, having a career in tech, and then, you know, starting out my tech career with Boeing, etc. And I'm like, no, let me do this. And so I decided to. I didn't know anything about storytelling or comics. Comics. I just decided, let me just go to an Emerald City Comic Con, which is a comic convention here in Seattle.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Looking for people. And so, long story short, then I found Aaron Sparrow, an editor who used to work with Disney. And Tokyo Pop. We found Professor Aurelio Mazzara, a crazy artist in Palermo, Sicily, where the mafia is still a thing. And we started writing books. And now I've brought on Silvir Katic as creative director. He's a very high-level screenwriter. And just growing the team. And so now we're at a point where, like, no, now we're creating these books and we're ready to introduce them to the world. And it's not just about representation. It's about good storytelling that just so happens to be set in a very unique setting, the Ottoman world, and has under the hood like themes based on the Islamic tradition that not a lot of people explore. But for us, these aren't religious stories. They're just stories in a setting that people are not used to seeing, exploring themes that they're not used to seeing. So something nobody's ever seen before.
So you're out to tell the truth. You're not going to be pro Hollywood and flip the script. You are telling the script as it is.
Yeah, and obviously, like, you know, the series Brotherhood of the Wolf still has like monsters and vampires, etc. But we're not here to like lie about historical people, right? We're gonna tell it as it is, right? So So essentially we're the anti-Hollywood, and which is fine because right now Hollywood, I think people have gotten tired of it and they're kind of failing. The movie industry is not doing well. The streaming industry is struggling, and so I think this is a good time to show people an alternative, a high quality alternative.
So why comics? Why did you choose comics as a way to storytell? Why didn't you have a Wes Al Dhaher? Wes Al Dhaher or Dhaher Wood?
Wes Al Dhaher. That sounds like a carpentry place selling furniture. Wes Al Dhaher.
Wes Al Dhaher. I know that.
But yeah, that's a good question. And I initially, Corine, you know, you might be surprised. I initially wanted to do these stories as novels. So just like, okay, I'll write these as novels because I love reading novels. I love reading. I always grow up reading a book. Like my mom, she was telling me yesterday, you know, I have a picture of you. It was taken by when you were young in elementary school. It was taken by the bus monitor, the school bus monitor. And she took a picture of you and you're taking the entire seat, the bus seat by yourself. You're lying down and you're reading a book, Harry Potter book. And so you always liked reading. I'm like, yes, I know.
You should have brought that picture. You should have brought that picture and show it here.
I should have, right?
You right? We need to see what Wes look like. And when this whole anti-Hollywood Wes Al Dhaher thing started happening.
Yeah. Well, I was just reading Harry Potter at the time. I was like, wow, I wonder what happens next with anyway. So for me, I just always like reading. So I was like, okay, let me start writing these novels. But then I just, you know, Corine, I think you have good business sense. You kind of understand what's going on. I think you talk to a lot of business people. And so what's one of the big parts of having a successful business is knowing what your customers want. And so I decided, okay, before I really dive too much into this, let me see what people in the marketplace, like the younger generation, millennials, Gen Z, etc. What I say, hey, so what books do you guys like to read? They're like, books. Books? We don't read books. The last time we read books was school. So no, so I'm like, oh, okay, this is a problem. So they tend to like more visual media, right? Like videos and things like that. And movie. But I don't have a budget to make a movie. Like we're talking about Westwood. I don't have the money to create Westwood.
Not there yet. Yeah.
But like I know that, like, you know, a lot of these guys, they like to read manga, like the Japanese comics. Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? How about this? Why can't I just do these stories as a comic book? in the comic book medium, because comic books, I think in the US we have the stereotype comic books is just superheroes, people wearing tights and spandex and just going a job. That's not
And a
the case.
cape.
Yeah, and a
And a
cape,
cape.
exactly. And that's not the case. Comic books is a medium. So if you look in like, for example, in Europe or in Japan, like they tell cowboy stories in comic books. They tell detective stories, horror stories, fantasy stories. So it's a medium. It's not a genre. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that's, with that in mind, let me do these as comic book stories because it's visual. They don't have to tire themselves out reading prose. And so that's why I decided to do it as comic books. Yeah.
It's quite easy on the mind, very relaxing actually, because I remember growing up as a child not too long ago, like yesterday, and reading comic books. And I remember that very, easy, very relaxing, therapeutic, And I'm thinking when I looked at the artwork, and persons can check out Wes' website and social and stuff, although he's not really on social, but more the website.
Yeah.
You will see a lovely video, which is going to come out after this episode on my LinkedIn page, and it will take you to his website as well. But when I look at the artwork, it's very intricate, well done. And what came to mind is like coloring books as well, because I like coloring books. I'm into coloring books. And I find that very, I don't know if you're doing that now or if you're planning to do it. Tell me.
Coloring books? Not, that wasn't on the mind. I mean, I always saw coloring books like when I'm like in the cashier on the grocery store, like coloring books for, and initially I was being mean about it. I'm like, what coloring books? What's going on? What is this? What is this? And so I'm like, so I told my wife about it, and she's, she's a
coloring
medical.
Books is a thing.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They have adult coloring books.
Yeah, yeah. She told me that. She's like, no, it's like people trying to de-stress, and it's a great way, just very therapeutic thing. And I'm like,
of course, you get lost in coloring. You get lost. You don't think about your problems, your children, the husband, the outside man, the wife.
Husbands are horrible. Husbands are horrible. They are horrible. They're just, I don't know how you deal with them. So,
let's not go there, Wes. Let's not go there. Remember, we're building Weatherwood. We're building Weatherwood.
It really was, exactly. So, so no, that's a good point. So, like, I never considered coloring books, but like, honestly speaking, we're trying to be very dynamic. So, like, I mean, if there's a need for it, if there's a demand for it, I'd be happy to. Obviously, the lesser evil short story, which is the video, which is kind of what the trailer is about. It's in two parts. There's a prose section, written by the great Ezra L.C., fantastic fantasy writer, very excellent. He's like Stephen King, his writing, and then we have 13 pages of silent gray tone comic story that just follows the story, because it's us just showing our muscles. We're flexing. We're saying we could tell the story in different mediums and just kind of showing off and giving people opportunities to enjoy. But then once you get into issue number 1 and afterwards, it's like complete color with lettering and etc. So
nice.
And so this is I know not everybody. So this is like issue number 1.
Nice.
And so it's complete coloring, complete.
Let me just focus on you here. Hold on, leave it. Let me just focus on you here.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's have ooh, that's nice. Open it up.
Sure.
I like it. It's glossy.
It's glossy, yes.
Yeah. You're making me want to get one of those, yeah? Oh.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm showing, but yeah. Oh yeah. so and it's people ask me,
What age group is that for?
That's a great question. So somebody asked me like, hey, is this, I have a 9-year-old son. Can I show it to them? And I'm like, it's dark fantasy. So there's quite amount of like scary stuff and violence. So if you're so like you can think of it like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Because
a teenager, like a 16.
Teenager and above. Like I think 16-year-old. But unlike Game of Thrones has a lot of like sex, Corine, very filthy. But we don't have that here.
I'm PG.
Yeah, we just have the violence, but none of the other spicy stuff. So that's the general age group.
So you're telling stories about understanding Muslim. So it's really not only about education and, as you say, flipping the script, but really telling the script is also means by which, like you said, it's a medium. It's a means by which to let people better understand a Muslim, their personality, their faith, their beliefs, so that in interaction with them, persons will not be coming with these type of predetermined thoughts, judgments. Is that what's happening? Because I'm seeing it on a bigger level here. I'm seeing it, and probably this is your mission, and you could tell me. I'm seeing it on a level of changing the landscape of how we interact as human beings on this planet. We don't have the time, Wes. We don't have the time or the space for all the ick that has been happening in the world. Okay. And so if there are people who could really, like yourself, who can really tell the real story, as opposed to whoever out there that's perpetuating stories, to create more animosity and issues and chaos within the little life that we have on this earth. The little life. People might think it's a lot, but it's really a little. Okay, the little life we have on this earth. And I'm seeing it, your work, as being so instrumental in changing the landscape. Is that your intention? Is that what you're doing? What?
Yeah, that's beautifully put, Corine. So that is exactly like what we're trying to do here. And I think in order to make change and to have a positive impact in the short period of time where we have on Earth, like you mentioned, you have to deal with with people as they are, not as you want them to be, right? Mm-hmm. And all of us humans, including myself, I'm not unique in this. We have only so much attention we want to pay to things, right? We tend to like more entertainment more than we like education. Like, like it doesn't take energy for somebody to be like watching Netflix, but they have to give themselves energy and motivation to read a chemistry book.
Of course.
Exactly. So that's why I'm like, yeah. So we're trying to share. We're trying to share some theme, because that's what storytelling is. Storytelling is an ancient teaching device.
Of course.
But that is like, it's like medicine that you add some sweetness to, add some sugar to, so it can go down. One of the problems with Hollywood currently is that they're now being very preachy about things, where it's no longer entertaining. It's just repulsive. It's just like, why are you preaching these ideas to me, right? Whether you agree with the ideas or not, I have to.
They're putting it on you. Yeah,
they're just too much. It's too much. So I'm like, even this. So even though for us it's like, setting the Islamic setting, obviously you see, in a very historical time period, we're trying to show respect to the audience by, if we want to explore a theme, we look at two sides of it, right? Because that's what good storytelling is. It doesn't just preach to you. It says, let's explore a theme. Let's explore a theme or a dramatic argument, and we, in a hopefully in a fair way, show you the two sides.
Yes.
So that's why, like the like in issue number 1 here, the first the beginning scene isn't with the heroes. It's literally with the villains making an argument, like kind of explaining why they're doing what they're going to do. That way, because they're humans, right? And so like with the Brotherhood of the Wolf story, like they're not perfect people. Like our main characters, they're not they're heroes, but they're flawed heroes. So for example, just to give you kind of like the high level of the first story arc, like issue number 1 through issue number 5, you could say like the blood freezes in the Sultan's court while a masked giant hunts evil through the Ottoman Empire. His companion, a coward with a rifle, trembles at every shadow. Together they track missing children to a remote Serbian village, but they find something way worse than bandits. And they're joined by a disgraced nobleman thirsting for redemption, an alchemist obsessed with forbidden magic, a warrior whose face nobody has seen, and at the center of it all, you have Tahsin, a guy here, the guy in the center with the gun, who he dies a little each time because fear makes him run. But when they discover that there's something that's stealing the village's beautiful sons and virgin daughters, he's going to discover that running won't save anybody. And so this is kind of like you can consider this like a fantasy where The Witcher meets 1001 Nights, and it gives Muslims the heroes Hollywood never dared to show. But as I'm explaining all this, you realize like, okay, all of the protagonist characters that I mentioned, they all have flaws.
But
And
that's a
so,
human. But that's
exactly.
a human. And this is everyday life. And
Exactly.
when I'm listening to you tell the story, you know, and describe the characters, you're describing us. We want to go and pursue something. We fight for things that we want to fight for, that we believe in, but we are flawed. Who tells you? Who says that we are not scared? Who tells you that that we have ever done this before? You know, you move from Silicon Valley into something that you have never done before. You knew nothing about comics, nothing about the arts. That in itself is scary. I mean, people will say it's crazy. That's why I called you crazy in the beginning, because that's crazy stuff.
It's true.
Only crazy people do those kind of things. You're crazy enough to believe that you could actually do something that you've never been exposed to or never done before, right? So that is you in the book. That's me in the book, and that's who's watching and listening us in the book. We are seeing ourselves, and yes, that is a great way of storytelling, because one of the things, because I come from a communications background, is to be able to allow the reader to see themselves in the book. You know, you don't want to be reading something or watching something and you can't relate. You can't see yourself in the characters, the actors, the actresses, whatever it is. You must be able to see yourself, because you're also teaching that it is possible. I can be one of those characters and know that to go through that forest or to fight for something or to meet a million knights by myself, I might turn it into a party. Let me just tell you, if I meet a million knights, I turn it into a party coming from the Caribbean. But but yeah, somebody else might say, oh my God, what am I going to do with a million knights? I'm the only female here. But so it all depends. But you're actually seeing yourself, knowing that it is possible. It is possible for somebody watching this to know that they can move from Silicon Valley to something different. It is possible to be able to dare to believe that you can do something that you have never done before, even if all the voices in your head is telling you can't do it, but it is in you to do so.
100%. That's beautifully put. And Hollywood used to understand this. They used to be able to do this, even up until like 2016. If you look at what they've been producing, usually 2016 is when things took a turn for the worst. Because it's exactly for the reasons you described. Like all the characters that I just described to you briefly, like you said, like you could see yourself, you or somebody in the audience could see themselves in them, even though demographically they might be different. Whereas Hollywood now, they're like, no, and the only way that the audience can relate to the character is if it's demographics. It's just at the level of demographics. I'm like, no, that's not the case. There's a human element here that you're missing. I can relate to somebody who's completely different demographically than me. But as long as the human element is there, the psychology is there, then it doesn't matter what the demographics are. And I think that's one of the things that's killing them, because it looks like they don't really understand that or care about that anymore. And it's affecting the viewership. And
don't you worry, Wes. We are working. I noticed you said I said we are working on Weatherwood. Okay, we're working on Weatherwood. And I'm thinking, you're talking about storytelling. And like I mentioned, I come from a communications background. I'm a communications specialist. And storytelling is one of the ways in which we reach our audience. You use comics to be able to do that. In an organization, and I mean, you are coming from Silicon Valley, right? You're a tech entrepreneur. If you're looking at organizations, what medium do you think would be effective for persons in tech, persons in probably non-tech, to be able to communicate to their audience outside of comics? Could they use comics? Do you think that would be effective? What would be the effective ways for persons to reach their audience? You're using comics for you because that works for you, and you realize books are another thing for your target audience. But for organizations coming from Silicon Valley, if they want to improve their communication strategy or be able to reach your target audience, what do you think would be some fabulous mediums that they could use?
Well, that's the thing. Like mediums, like you have to look at it from the level of principle and not the level of tactics, right? So the reason I went with comic books is because of my target market. My target market determined my medium. And so if you're in an organization and you're a communication specialist and you're deciding what medium should I use, to answer that question, you need to ask the question is like, what is my target market comfortable with, right? So like if you're dealing with baby boomers, like insisting on using TikTok videos might not be the best strategy, you know. with baby boomers, it might be better to use email. It might be better to even use direct mail. Direct mail is very powerful, and people don't.
Or knock on the door, come at their door.
Yeah. You know, but for others, so it really depends, and I think more so than medium, it's about just closing the communication loop. Oftentimes, there's a lot of waste in organizations, and so you'll have endless meetings, and they think that meetings are work. Meetings aren't work. Meetings are just to get to some sort of decision or to share information.
Can I tell you, I hate meetings. I cannot stand, especially unproductive meetings where they talk, and you walk out. I'm like, what's the purpose? What are we meeting to do? What? That you can't say in an email. You're taking up my time. You know, and you mentioned waste, and that is, meetings is one of the most ineffective strategies, especially when you don't know how to use it and lead it and facilitate it and moderate it. Is one of the most ineffective strategies.
Well, you want to hear a secret tip for meetings that I have that like really helps?
Please share it.
Save your calendar. So it's called, and I didn't invent this, but it's called PPO. PPO.
Okay.
Purpose, process, outcome. And so what you do is, like, if you're making a meeting, in the description, just call out what's the purpose of the meeting, what's the process of the meeting, and what's the outcome of the meeting. That way, everyone knows what the agenda is, like PPO. And if somebody sets up a meeting with you, and the agenda does not have the PPO question answered, like they're not answering the question, what's the purpose of the meeting, or what the process of how's the meeting going to be run, or what's the expected outcome of the meeting, just decline. Just be like, I don't know what this meeting is about, right? And that'll save you so much time, and it'll help train people who work with you to be more thoughtful about the meetings that they put on the calendar.
Wes, as I said, you're talking to a communication specialist, and I'm so happy you said that, and it's not me. So I'm going to put all the blame on you. So I am so glad that you said it, but here's the thing. When people in so-called, let's put the air quotes, leadership positions, managerial positions, and they decide they want a meeting, and you're like, why? You're sitting down in a little cubicle or your office, whatever it is, and you're invited to something. You cannot ask them, what's the purpose of the meeting? What's the outcome, the PPO strategy? They're like, they want to meet because meetings exert a certain level of authority. It exerts that I have power over you. I could call you into things because I am the manager. I am the leader. You can't ask them. So how do we get that drilled into the leaders or the manager's head to be purposeful? What's the first P again? The
purpose, yeah.
Purpose, process, and the outcome. How can we get them to even before even typing it and inviting us to a meeting?
That's a good question. I think, like, you have to show them how it benefits them. So it's like, hey, listen, Vice President Billy Bob, like, I know you really care about like the bottom line, and I know we care about top line revenue and selling all of our widgets and software that nobody really cares about. But also, I think a great way to make profits is to minimize the amount of overhead and waste. And you know what? Like one easy low-hanging fruit that would make you really look good is if like you we minimize the amount of meetings waste. And so, like, if you look at let's take a look at how many meetings we have on the calendar and what's the value extracted from them. Can we make improvements there? What do you think? And then, if they're any kind of good leader, they'll at least give it some serious thought, right? But if they're the type of leader like, no, I come into my office, we're going to have a 2-hour meeting to talk about my butterfly collection, then in that case, then I think then it would come on you as the employee, like, do you really want to work here?
No. come into my office and talk about my butterfly collection. That is exactly how it is.
Yeah.
No, come into my office and let's talk about my butterfly. And you sitting there and you are like cussing left, right, center, top and down. Oh my God, Wes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we need more comic strips in comic books in the office. That's what
I might make a series called The Boss's Butterfly Collection, just talking about the workplace and how sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, that's the thing. It's just like, it's all about like, you know, like you're talking about craziness. Like one of the things that made me crazy enough is like, I want to be able, I can't meet the vision that I have if I don't take the risks to make the decisions on my own, right? Because a lot of times people want the comfort of not making risks. They want the comfort of just like you know, a regular corporate job lifestyle.
Yes.
But at the same time, they want autonomy, and you
It
can't have both.
work. It
can't
can't work.
Yeah.
No.
So either you pick one, or you have to like either, you know, take some risks but be prepared to be uncomfortable.
Choose your weapon. Choose
Exactly.
your weapon.
Yeah. So if you really want to be comfortable and you don't want to take any risks, and not even and you've talked to your boss about its leadership about like meeting inefficiencies, and they're like no, and you really don't like it. If you're not prepared to take the risk, then just go and listen to the butterfly collection meeting and just deal with it.
And you might walk out learning something about a butterfly. You might.
Exactly. Yes, they're beautiful creatures.
Oh yes, beautiful, beautiful. You might see one day one of those butterflies from his butterfly collection in your garden, and you say, "Oh, I learned this from our 2-3 hour meeting."
Yes, exactly.
How productive to the bottom line. Thank you so much, Wes, for that. PPO, purpose, process, and outcome. People, I learned something today. Thank you, Wes.
My pleasure. That's what I'm here for.
I know. Wes, how can people reach you? Tell me, because you're not on social. Let me talk about that. Why is it you're not on social, Wes? You have a comic book. You're doing such great work. You were in the Silicon Valley. Come on.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I am on social, like mostly on Twitter. But here's the thing. The reason I point people to go to the website directly is because they can sign up to my email list and they get all the announcements there. For me, sometimes I have controversial opinions, and knowing how tech works, they can deplatform you at any time. You say something they don't like, and like they'll just select delete and it's over.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, why would I let some crazy tech people get in the way between me and my audience?
Crazy
so no,
tech. Isn't that your people?
I know. Yes, I know them. so I'm like, that's why just come to the website, sign up to the email list, which is free, and you'll get updates and special offers and things like that. And nobody comes between us. We communicate freely and smoothly.
Nobody comes between us. I love that.
See, that's like a love song.
Nice love relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nobody gets between us. Not Facebook, not LinkedIn, not Instagram. Nobody. 100%. I love it. So how can they get to you? Tell us your website, even though I have it in the description.
Yeah. So the website is Tales of Khayr. So TALESOF and KHAYR.com. So talesofkhayr.com. And we're going to be updating the website, but you can go there now and sign up to the email list now. And you'll hear from me once a week. And I try to provide entertaining but informational stories. It's not just spam, because nobody likes spam. So that's
nobody likes it. I can't do the throat thing, people. I keep telling you I can't pronounce the words like Wes, but whatever he said, that's where you need to go. I'll practice. Wes, I promise. I'll practice.
Yeah, no, it's a requirement if you want to help build Westwood. It's a requirement. If you want to build Westwood, you have to be able to say the name.
That's right. That's a challenge. It's on. It's on. Thank you so much for being on Between the Lines, sharing your work, sharing your journey. You sound like, so happy, so contented where you are in your life, which is good. Like I tell you, we're not here for very long on this earth, and it's always important to live a life of passion, of joy and bliss. You know, it must be worth it while you're here. It must be worth it while you're here, and also make an impact, even if it's on one person. Be able to leave an impact and a legacy. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Anything else before we wrap up? Any final words?
No, I just really appreciate you having me on and the conversation. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, Corine.